Get off the marketing roller coaster and get on the automated fast track to digitally market your brand everywhere now. Join podcast producer Tom Hazard and Inc. columnist Tracy Hazard as they share easy content building formulas and smart cut secrets proven to fuel hundreds of blogs, podcasts, and brands with bingeable original content. Join the conversation on how to get your message out to the world. Be original. Be heard. Promote with power and purpose. Feed your brand.
Hey everybody, welcome to Feed Your Brand. I'm Tom Hazard here with my co-host Tracy. Today we're going to talk about live events. What's a live event, Tracy? I don't remember.
You know where people go, like actual people. I forget who it was that used to just talk about going belly to belly. I don't want to be that close with anyone. Yeah, I'm not ready for that, but I love to be around people. You know, I'm an extrovert. Surprise, surprise. I mean, to all you people out there, I'm an extrovert, which means that I actually thrive off the energy of the group, right? Lots of introverts, they get drained from that, but I'm the opposite of that. And so I miss that. You know, you can only get energized so much. Luckily, I have two very energetic daughters who have been helping me out in the last year and a half, right? But I'm excited for live events, and we have had some scheduled, and that's been really exciting. But all of a sudden I realized like nothing was packed and nothing was ready. And I had to like rethink my whole go-to bag, which I used to just have ready to go to do interviews, because sometimes I'd get called to go up to LA to do like last minute interviews, attend a, celebrity event or something and do interviews there. And you just have to be ready for it. And so, are you prepared for big events? So we're going to give you some podcast recording advice for getting good media live. So we're going to talk about the recording side of it. We're also going to talk about a little bit about the prep and the things you might want to bring, or the things you might want to do ahead of time when you're going to go to an event and record your podcast live, or even record just segments or interviews live. So sometimes I'll record segments and interviews and then compile them into an episode later. So, using sound bites and bits and pieces or something to drive off of. So we're going to talk a little bit about that sort of general idea, because we got to get ready. It's totally different world, everything on Zoom and everything that we've been doing, recording remotely is, pretty easy. And we've all got that down. And now we're going to do this in a different way again. We got to be prepared for that. So, Tom, what do we usually bring with us?
Well, equipment-wise, you need to bring a good microphone. This is sort of one of my pandemic pet peeves has been, we see all sorts of people now, even on television programs, being interviewed, part of guest panels, all sorts of things. They're doing it remotely from home, as they should be, and they don't have a good quality microphone. Their audio quality is horrible, and I can't stand listening to it. So, as I said, Tom's pandemic pet peeve, but bring a good microphone. Okay. We always recommend having a good microphone like this. And
like the ATR 2005, 2000 general.
AT 2005 is the one. It's a commercial one. And if any of you, got a microphone from us, it's probably that. There was a time during the pandemic when mics were out of stock.
Yeah.
And we had to have some alternates. Still an Audio Technica cardioid dynamic microphone. The point is, these microphones are kind of directional. They're meant to really record one or two people in close proximity and not to pick up all the background noise in the room. If you've got an older microphone or even a new one that's like a Yeti or something, that's what's called a condenser microphone, those tend to pick up way, way too much background noise.
And this is what you don't realize. You test it at home and you think this is going to sound great. And then you end up in a ballroom, and with giant ceilings and the hum and buzz of noise, and it sounds terrible. So the more expensive mic, this is what Tom and I have discovered over time, the more really expensive mics you go, the worse the sound is in a live setting like that. And there's no amount of like adjusting the settings on it. It's going to get it right. It's going to take you hours to figure it out. We tried it and it still doesn't get right. It's great in a sound booth. That's what it's supposed to be for. It's just not great at a live event like that. So these directional mics, that's what you want. That's what we recommend. It's what we use here. I really wish our microphone was done by now, but thanks to the pandemic.
Thanks to the chip shortage.
The chip shortage, right. We're still waiting for it. But, our mic was designed because of fails at big events from taking microphones and equipment and having too much together. So keep in mind that you're comfortable with your setup likely of recording to your computer. Right? That's probably where you've been comfortable with for quite some time. So you've got that comfort level of having your microphone and your computer, but you're comfortable with the distance to the mic that you usually do for your own settings. It's a different environment when all of a sudden you're covering two people, right? So what we want to do is, you can hear this here, is that we have it set specially because my voice is so much louder and carries so much more than Tom's. We have the microphone set farther distance from me than it is from Tom. And we do that on purpose here because we know the dynamic of our voice. You don't always know that with the person you're going to interview. And so if you're doing the microphone to computer setup, you're using still a computer cam, or even a tripod with a camera on it, which is another optional piece of equipment you can do. But no matter what you're doing, you've got to record that somewhere, right? And you've already got your computer and it works just fine. So, carrying around, getting extra devices, those things are possible, and we'll talk about them in a minute. But this is the simple setup, right? Let's go for the simple thing. You've already got this going on, but choosing the distance between your microphone, test it in the space ahead of time, and test it with people who talk quietly and people who talk loudly like me and project, because you're also going to have this situation where you're not going to be able to tell how it is because of all the sound you're going to be hearing around you. So you're not going to have a good sense of how did that sound come out. So go into the space, go in when it's busy, don't go in before nobody's there, and check it out and try it out ahead of time.
Yeah, test. Can't really say that enough. There are many ways, to record. Like Tracy said, simplest thing, if you can have your computer and use it the way you normally would, then by all means do that. Not everybody wants to carry around a computer to an event. So the next thing is, most of us have a computer in our hand with our smartphone.
Oh, imagine that.
How about that? And I have an Apple device, so you can have a USB adapter that will plug into your phone. And if you're not going to broadcast live, now we want to talk about that today, but if you just wanted to record audio, simple voice memo app on your phone, and I use an iPhone that has a voice memo app built in. Plug in the microphone with a little adapter you have to get from Apple, and it will absolutely record fantastic sound. Your phone will use your USB microphone.
And they make the same thing for Samsungs and for, all kinds of Android devices. There's no issue there. The big thing to do, though, is that that cable that Tom was referring to. It's like, it plugs into whatever your port is, USB-C. I don't know what the
lightning on an
iPhone, like whatever that is, that plugs in, and the other end is the USB. But buy the one for the Apple devices, buy the Apple one. We have discovered that the aftermarket ones get glitchy, and it will cut, your microphone might cut in and out, and you won't even know that till you listen to the recording later. And in a live event, you only get one shot at the recording, especially if you're interviewing a celebrity. This is why we invented our microphone, because it upset me so much that went wrong. So you only get one shot of that. And the other thing that I recommend is buying two cables and having them with you, because you may discover that they do go bad quickly, or they get crimped in your bag. Things happen to them. Having an extra one of those cables, they're not that expensive. Completely worth having a backup of. Doesn't take a lot of space.
Now, if you're going to go live, though, at an event, which is also not a bad thing to do, and you don't have to record an entire episode live. You could just use a portion of a live recording as a clip in a subsequent podcast episode. A lot of options there. But again, you could go live on Facebook right from your phone with the Facebook app. And again, plugging your microphone into your phone, it's going to use that good quality microphone. Now, if you're getting both of you in the frame of the camera, and you're sort of holding up the camera to get both of you on it. Get
somebody to help you, or get one of those selfie sticks.
Right. But still, you're going to want to be close enough to your guest that you can hold a microphone between the two of you, and it'll pick you both up.
Right. So now here's the thing. Holding a selfie stick, holding a microphone, hand the microphone to your guest, hold the selfie stick, right? Don't make them hold the camera for sure, or get somebody else. Bring somebody with you. This is what teenagers are for. Like go drag them to an event with you. Oh, look how cool. You're going to get to meet really great people and you get to be my lackey, right? Like that's what we want. Let's bring them in. And so this is kind of, this is the way, because what you're going to find is that there's just an overwhelm of equipment, and like you're trying to figure out how am I hold my phone, especially if you don't have a set up, a table, a space, you're just going to the quietest corner you can find in the ballroom, or, you're on a red carpet. This is it. And so ladies out there, get dresses with pockets, skirts, whatever, pants, whatever it is, get pockets. I'm going to tell you, you always need to drop your phone somewhere. You need to put the recording device somewhere. You need the extra cable, right? All of those things, those are essential.
I'm a big fan of polo shirts with pockets.
Right. So you're going to want those, because this is an issue, because you need to, you want to be in the moment of getting to meet this person, shake their hand, doing a great interview, being attentive to them, not worrying about the equipment that you're holding, carrying, and doing it. So simpler is better. And whatever way you can do it at, and if you can get help, that's even better. Let them worry about everything. But, always double check. Make sure the recording's on, double check with everyone, because this is a huge problem that I've had again and again. Battery backups, making sure you're fully charged, making sure you can charge in between interviews. All of that can go very, very, very wrong. And so that's a critical importance too. So making sure you've got backups for all of those things, and or time built into your schedule so that you can recharge, you can charge your devices, because you may find that the optimum location to record is nowhere near a plug. And you've got to scope that space out and find that optimum sounding space. So, this is an issue for us, Tom. We've had lots of issues finding the right space to record in, sometimes at our events. Let's talk about last year's 2020's Super Bowl event. That space was super challenging.
It was really hard. So we were doing a podcast publicity pop-up event, which is what we had been doing, up to that point, which at any event, really nurturing and fostering the idea that, hey, there's all sorts of really great people at this event. Let's bring in some podcasters local to the area. Some wanted to travel a long distance. That's great. And record a whole bunch of great people. Let everybody get a lot of great interviews recorded in a short period of time.
And it's kind of a little blitz-like, because if you're a guest, you can go from one to the next to the next. Especially if they're celebrity or something like that, it's really efficient in the process of it. And their PR people love it. The publicists just absolutely love it, because it's really efficient. They said, so-and-so is going to be in for 2 hours. They can conduct, 4 interviews in that time period. And then they go and give their speech, or they give their speech and then they do 2 hours, whatever it is. If they've got that and you've got them, it's wonderful to be able to connect up and be able to get those kind of one-on-one interviews. The thing is that they're typically shorter interviews. So keep that in mind. If you normally do a 30-minute show or 30-minute interview with someone, you're not going to get that. You might get 15 minutes, and they will be shorter. And some places they're even shorter than that. So
now, in the beginning of 2020, this was a big part of our plan for 2020. And while fortunately we still did very well in 2020 as a company, this part of our plan tanked because events absolutely stopped by mid-May.
Right.
And so that's very unfortunate.
Mid-March.
Mid-March. I'm sorry. I said that wrong. Mid-March. They stopped by mid-March. So we would have done a whole lot more, and we plan to do more going forward. So, but here's an example, is that we had really told the event organizers, hey, we're going to be recording a bunch of podcast interviews. We need an appropriate, venue, an appropriate space to record them in, with carpet on the floor, and smaller rooms are better than larger rooms. And of course we get there and they say, oh, we have the best place for you, and they take us to it, and it is absolutely the worst environment possible. It was like a room all the 50 yards long, and it had a hardwood floor and all these glass windows, sound reflecting everywhere. We're like,
zero carpet, zero curtains, right? Like nothing, no furniture even in it to like even stop, nothing dampening the sound in it. And then it had these 2 patios.
Yeah. So we said, you know what? We're going outside with this. We can't do it inside. The ceilings were
lower on the patios. Now you have outside sounds, but with the directional mics that we're using, the way those cardio mics record, you just don't get a lot of that sound. And so because they were also sitting lower on, we put them on lounge furniture, the glass or sort of I would call the barrier that, because it's like view out into the ocean in Miami. And so, the barrier that was there kept all the sound nice and in for what was being recorded. And so, yeah, you could kind of hear a little bit of wind over the top, but it wasn't bad. And it was certainly something that you could mostly edit out or downplay in the editing because it was pretty consistent sound.
And to the extent that you did hear white noise from the city around us, it kind of made the interview on location real.
But it wasn't so loud.
A bad thing.
Right. Yeah. But it wasn't so loud that it was distracting. So we made it work. Although I have to say that then we had a bug problem and, there was lots of other things you just never anticipate of what goes on at live events. Luckily, everybody was so gracious and so wonderful. Now, the best part about our podcast publicity pop-ups, the Podetize ones that we do, is that we bring equipment for the podcasters so that all they have to do is show up and sit down and we're taking care of the recording for them. And then we're using a higher powered Zoom device, which not Zoom like
Zoom like we're using now, but that's anyway.
It's a physical recording device,
a digital audio recorder, and we had separate really good HD video cameras recording video, and we would just combine the audio and the video separately. Right. But anyway, you can do things like that if you want to. What we do at these pop-up events, we plan it ahead. We bring in a lot of equipment. We bring in lights that we needed. We bring in, tripods and cameras, but you don't you don't always have to do that. If you're just wanting to be a little, less formal, a little easier to deal with, I really think the modern cell phone connected to a good quality microphone is a great solution, whether you're recording audio only or recording video.
Right. Now, I've seen some people come with like lavs hooked to their iPhone, lavs hooked to Zoom devices, the recording devices. And the things is that the lavs tend to not work as well as you think, because
now, what Tracy's talking about is a lapel microphone that's called a lav mic. Those are the little things that you see people use on television and at events. So just in case some people
thank you for defining it. I'm like
really,
dropping terms.
What's a lav?
Yeah, I'm dropping terms, and usually I'm not the one to do that. I'm usually fixing you, and I just drop that. So anyway, yes. So those microphones tend to not work because sometimes there's not a great place to hook them. People have jewelry, women have jewelry that interfere, and it can always be risky. I have seen people use them successfully, and I've also seen them go very bad. And so that's a risky one, but they are a lot smaller to carry around, and it seems really appealing. But I have had it, if you do not test it ahead of time, you buy the wrong device, you can go very wrong in that you can't get two separated mics. And so then you end up with one that you're like sitting there holding between you because the two mics don't work.
And it looks kind of silly. And, I would rather hold a big mic like this that has my brand or, has my show name, that if I'm on video, hey, we're promoting our brand the whole time, because you're sure not going to have a green screen behind you, right?
And imagine if you hand that to a celebrity who's now holding your brand in their hand. It's way better than those little mics. And so that's why we prefer this model of it. But the sound on these are so much better. The lavs tend to have like rustling and other things that interfere in it. While they're not bad in that they don't pick up all of the environment around them, you do still hear a lot of background noise that are going on from the movement. So microphones, where you're going to record, think that through. What you're going to do with video. Are you going to go live? Are you going to just carry cameras with you? Are you going to have someone carrying a camera? Are you just going to use your phone? What are you going to do with that? I still prefer the whole idea of just keeping it simple. And if you can get a table, and so if you can work with the organizer to get a space, I like to get a stand-up table. That's my preferred. You can get a stool in case everybody's been standing all day. So you can get a stool. I'm short, so even if I stood up, someone in a stool would still be taller than me. But so you can get stools to kind of pop yourself up there. But it gives me a stand-up table gives me the opportunity to stand up, hold the mic, step back, have my computer on the table, not be talking into the computer, be able to use my normal camera setup, or a tripod on the other side of the table with a higher quality camera, and you can still do all of that relatively simply, and it gives you a place to drop things, and it just gives you a little bit better setup.
These tables are very common at events.
Exactly.
They're pretty much every hotel that has an event space has this kind of standing height table. They might call it a bar height table, little round one, and usually has this fabric that stretches over it right to the base so that you don't see the pole or whatever.
And I keep that extra fabric piece, a black one, in my bag at all times. And that way, if it's really awful and ugly, I can just throw that cloth over it. And, that doesn't take up a lot of space. And so I've got that stashed away in my suitcase. And so those things make it really simple. It's just a little bit easier. And it also creates this sort of separation between other people who might start to crowd in while you're interviewing. You've got that table between you. And that's really helpful to the recording process, right? To create that intimacy of making sure that there aren't people crowding into you. Because what happens when you're recording with someone, and if you don't have like the big amount of equipment, but if you're just recording like audio with it, is people get closer to hear you. And now they're really crowding in, and it's very distracting. And if they've got a publicist, the publicist is sitting there like, tapping their watch on you. That's exactly what happened to me and Gary Vee. We had like 2 minutes and I was getting tapped, So these kinds of things go on at the events too. And so anytime you can create a barrier and a space for yourself that says this is the recording space, then you're going to be better off. And then also you're not moving around the space. You've got this one location. So when you go find someone who's, because you can also go to the booths or to the other areas and, where you've got some classes and courses going on, you can go grab someone and bring them back and interview them. You now have a space to bring them back to, or to send them and said, meet me in that spot at 2:30. And, that's going to be really helpful too. Also scheduling your time.
Now, Tracy, we talked about when we do these publicity pop-up events, we bring in a lot of equipment. We bring in some lights and things too. What do you recommend people do if it's, a little less formal, they're trying to bring minimal equipment, but they are going to record video? Should they have a small light? Is there an appropriate small light that would be of any benefit?
So some of the better cameras, that have a light that can attach to it. And so, remember when we used to have like flashes on top of them?
Yeah.
There are some of these aftermarket lights that you can buy that actually hook to the top of the video camera. And they have that sort of, so that camera, and there's a mount on top of it for a light. And then they have that sort of like, that fabric shadow box kind of thing that stretches over it. They have some of those too, which can diffuse the light. So you're not taking it off and having like a light bulb like shining at you. You have that diffuser on it, which helps angle everything. The big lights, that's super simple, and it's really pretty small, and you can get those very easily on Amazon.
It's small, but still you're talking about using a actual real video camera. But if I'm using my cell phone with a selfie stick and I'm trying to keep my equipment minimal, I might not use a light. Would you agree?
Yeah. And just keep that in mind, that your lighting is likely to be bad if you're indoors in a hotel or a ballroom. It will have a yellow cast to it, a yellow green cast to the lighting in there. No matter what you do, there's no like amount of cell phone settings, even the iPhone, which is so great with its camera, there's still only so much you can do, to get the coloring right.
Did you compliment the iPhone?
I did.
Wow, you're a Samsung girl.
I know. Yeah. I don't love the phone, but they have a great camera on there. But
do.
The settings still are not controllable in that environment because of the way you're recording. And it only works for photos, not as much for video. And that's something to keep in mind.
Well, so if you're going to be live streaming, you're going to have to deal with that situation. But I believe any average video editor can apply a filter to the video after the fact and do some color correction. And if you have that kind of green cast to the image, that can be corrected after the fact if you're going to put that out as a part of a video episode on YouTube or use a clip for social promotion.
That's why I'm not a huge fan of live streams, because you're not in control, because the timing slips at events all the time. So if you're expected to go live at 1 p.m. like we do here with your audience, and you expected to have a special guest and they're late because the event was running late and they're still on stage, you're out of luck. So we just don't want to do that. And we don't want to plan that in. So I'm a fan of like recording these things and then doing that sort of live stream later, by using the different restreams and the different other tools out there to stream it again as live at that moment. So you can still do it within the same day because you may want the urgency, the excitement of being at the event, but you could just do it a couple hours later. And it still gives you the flexibility to it. And if you're skilled, you can apply a filter. If you're not, you can live stream it and replace it later. That's something that we do as well. So, once it's no longer live, you've lost that sort of luster and excitement of it. You might as well just, remove it from the feed and add the, the recorded one and edited one in later. So that works as well.
I think it's a really good point you made, Tracy. At live events, all time schedules are soft.
Very soft.
They are not anything you really can plan around or depend on. If you do, I think you're going to set yourself up for disappointment.
Yeah, definitely. And then the last thing I kind of want to say to everyone is, like, if you act like a diva about this, about the events and about who you're going to interview and who you're not going to interview, you're going to miss out. So those that go to an event and say, okay, whoever you send my way, I'm going to interview them. You always have the right, because you're recording and not live streaming, you always have the right to not air it if it's not any good. But I have to tell you, some of the people that I thought were the worst fit for my show turned out to be some of the best interviews I've ever had. I mean, I did a whole event on blockchain and cryptocurrency, and I had no show about that. And I thought, why am I doing this? I was just going to write one article, but I thought I'll record all this. They could use it. We'll record it all. And I had some amazing interviews. I got to interview Steve Wozniak. How was I not going to use that? So being flexible and being the go-to person there who's willing to take it. So the publicists at an event have this need to make sure that their clients are seen. And the organizers of the event also have, not just for the speakers and the celebrities that are coming, but they also have it for the vendors that are there. And if you're willing to do the interviews and be really flexible about that, and just, and even if you can't do it, like, I just can't fit you on my schedule, but I'm going to set a time for us to interview next week. You do things like that, it will come back to you tenfold in an invitation to the next event and the next event and the next event. That is how people started begging us to do podcast publicity pop-ups, was that they loved working with me at these events and they wanted me to bring more people like me. And that's how we ended up doing that. And it's worked out so well because we coach those people that show up at the events and sort of say, here's what we're trying to do for you. We're trying to get you these 3 people guaranteed. We can't guarantee, right? And you're going to have to be flexible about it. But we promise we're going to get you as 3 people that you're going to fit your show and going to be right for you.
And Tracy, what's happened to podcasters that did have more of a diva attitude towards this sort of thing of interviewing everybody that's there and actually declined to interview people? What happened to them?
They've never been invited back, number one. Mm-hmm. Number two, their interviews were not good. The ones that they waited for and did, they were very short because that person was too busy. And so they actually didn't get the best interview that they could. And then the flip side of that is that almost all of those ones actually have pod faded. So they ended up having to quit their show because they weren't really in it for their audience and in it for the curiosity of the interview. And that, that's a whole nother thing, is like, and we'll probably have to do a separate episode on that because we're running low on time here. But, a whole nother thing is, how do you think on your feet to ask questions? It's different in a celebrity and the energy of an environment. You can get a little nervous there. So we'll have to talk about, how I prep and how I think about those interview questions as opposed to how I do it when I'm doing Zoom and, or when I'm, just doing a more casual podcast interview.
Yeah. Today we're talking more about the technical side, the tactical aspects of being able to conduct interviews. I agree with you, Tracy. We'll have another interview talking about not the tech at all and how we create the best interview, the best recording, the best podcast episodes in these situations.
Yeah. And so here's the thing, just to recap, the microphone is the most important thing, right? It goes again and again. You have an audio show at the end of the day. The podcast audio matters most. Making sure that you've got the best one for the right type of environment that you're going to be in, one that's not going to pick up sound everywhere, because there will be sound everywhere. Even if you think you're in a private space, somebody's going to pop in, somebody's going to walk through, there's going to be issues. So microphone matters most, your camera next, especially if you're going to, and think through the live stream versus recording, but the camera matters as the next most important thing. And then the lighting because of that. And we've recorded with incredible cameras. But I can still tell you the ballrooms still have bad lighting. And if you don't have good post-production, it's not going to work for you. So the last thing you may want to think is make sure you've got good post-production. So if you've been more used to just live streaming and airing it with no editing on your audio or on your video, you may want to have backup for that. You may want to, call in someone and say, I really need to just do these episodes. I need post-production.
All right. Well, I think that about wraps it up for today.
Yeah.
Thank you, Tracy. That's great insight. I appreciate some of the things you'd say. You've done a lot more of these live events than me. And I'm usually the guy you call in on the tech side to make sure you're prepped.
Hold the camera and get me some lights.
I'm the guy that you yell at when things don't work out exactly the way you want to. All right. Well, anyway, so hopefully you all can be prepared and ready for your next in-person event to take advantage of that and get some great recordings done while you're there. So
I can't wait to see you all at events coming up. So looking forward to it. Not quite belly to belly, but looking forward to seeing everybody one-on-one.
All right. Thanks for listening, everyone. We'll be back next time with another great episode on
Feed Your Brand.
For more tips, tactics, and strategies, visit us online at podetize.com or on social at Podetize. Thanks for exploring the power of podcasting and how to be seen, heard, found, and rewarded in our noisy digital world. Keep on podcasting.